The report was supposed to take 6 weeks. Land assess, recommend termination or continued funding, file the paperwork, leave before the dust storms made the return flight too dangerous. That was the entire job. 6 weeks in and out for a colony that the Outer Reach Authority had already quietly written off in 3 separate internal memos. Colony designation 7 Halsey had been failing for 9 years before she landed. Crop yields down 60%. Water reclamation systems older than half the colonists themselves. A child mortality rate the authority's own database flagged in red, the kind of red reserved for places about to be abandoned. Her name was Imara Voss. She was 31 years old, and this was supposed to be a routine evaluation before a promotion to a desk job back on the core worlds. She stepped off the shuttle, and the first thing she saw was a 12-year-old boy fixing a water pump with parts that shouldn't have fit together. Her assessment notes from day one were brutal and clinical, exactly as trained. Infrastructure failing across all systems. Agricultural output non-viable long-term. Population should be relocated within 18 months. Recommend immediate evacuation order. She sent that report up the chain that night. Then she went outside to look at the failing irrigation grid, because she had 4 more weeks on this rock and nothing better to do, and she noticed something the official surveys had missed entirely. The soil wasn't dead, it was drowning. 40 years ago, some terraforming engineer had built the drainage system backward, competent for a different climate model, catastrophic for the one that actually showed up. Nobody currently alive on the colony had the training to know that. They'd just spent 4 decades assuming the dirt itself had failed them. It hadn't, the dirt was fine. The plan had been wrong since before half these people were born. Imara was supposed to live in 4 weeks. She filed an extension request instead. Then another. By the time the authority noticed the pattern, she'd already redirected half the colony's water flow using nothing but borrowed pipe, and a stubborn refusal to admit a problem was unsolvable until she'd actually tried. Crop yields went up 11% in the first season. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't advanced technology nobody else had access to. It was a 31-year-old woman with an engineering background reading 40-year-old terraforming logs that nobody on the colony had ever been trained to interpret, and asking the single question nobody had bothered to ask in 4 decades. What if the ground was never the problem? By year 2, she had stopped pretending this was a temporary assignment. The authority sent 3 separate transfer orders. She filed 3 separate extension requests, each one backed by data nobody at headquarters could argue with, because the numbers kept improving and bureaucracies have a strange weakness for numbers that improve. She learned the names of all 412 colonists by the end of that year, not because a report required it. Because the boy who'd fixed that water pump on day 1, his name was Tomas, kept showing up at her door asking questions about pressure systems that she didn't have answers to yet, and she found she didn't want to stop answering them. She taught him what she knew. He taught her how the colony had survived 9 years of slow failure without losing its sense of humor, which was its own kind of engineering nobody puts in a manual. Year 4 brought the dust storm that should have killed them all. 11 days sustained. The kind the original colony charter had explicitly warned could happen once a generation. Except the original charter had been written by people who'd never actually seen one and had badly underestimated it. The grain silos weren't rated for it. Half the colony knew it. Nobody had the resources to fix silos that had been failing slowly for years, because fixing slow failures had never once been anybody's actual job here. It had always just been everybody's problem and nobody's responsibility. Imara spent 11 days awake, reinforcing silo walls with scavenged chip plating, and a structural formula she was improvising in real time on a tablet that kept losing power. They lost 12% of the grain stores. The authorities' own actuarial models had projected total loss in a storm of that severity. Total. Every single colonist would have starved by the following spring under the original infrastructure. Nobody back at headquarters ever saw those numbers. Imara never sent that report. She just kept fixing things and let the harvest data speak for itself the following season. Year 7, the authority finally sent someone to ask why their 6-week evaluation was still drawing a salary on a colony that had somehow climbed off the failure list entirely. The investigator arrived expecting mismanagement or fraud or some explanation that fit CL. Xianli into a quarterly report. Instead, he found 430 colonists. Population had grown, running an agricultural surplus, a water system that hadn't failed in 3 years, and a woman in her late 30s who'd clearly forgotten she was supposed to be filing reports back to a desk job she'd never wanted in the first place. He asked her point blank why she'd never gone home. She looked at him like the question didn't fully make sense. "This is home," she said. "I just hadn't done the paperwork on it yet." Year 11, Colony 7 Halsey filed its first request in colony history to sponsor its own incoming settlers, rather than waiting to be evaluated for evacuation. The authority approved it without debate. The numbers made the decision for them the same way numbers always do once they stop pointing toward failure. Tomas, 23 now, running the water systems Imara had taught him to read a decade earlier, gave the speech at the founding ceremony for the colony's new agricultural wing. He thanked exactly one person by name. Imara stood at the back of the crowd, the way she always had, because she'd never once in 11 years thought of herself as the kind of person's speeches got written about. She'd thought of herself as someone who came to fix a water pump and just never found a reason to stop. Her original report, the one she filed on day 1, is still in the authorities' archive. Recommend immediate evacuation order. Nobody ever deleted it. Imara made sure of that herself. She kept it as the first line of her own private file on the colony. 11 years, 400 reports, and one single uncorrected mistake she refused to erase. Because the mistake wasn't being wrong about the colony. The mistake would have been leaving before she found out she was.